Welcome back to RGR Craft. My name's Ryan. This is me going rogue with the help of my friend Mike on what is normally the craft beer industry, home brew, and now we're adding craft spirits. And it's because of today's market is so much about crossover. And you see a lot of manufacturers in both industries starting to take some of the bits and pieces in the flavor profiles from some of the other beverages. I think that's really intriguing, and I think it just adds to the alchemy, the cooking aspect of trying to brew something up that has different flavors than anyone's tasted before. You have examples like Jameson that is now casking their whiskey in vessels that have had IPA, that have had coffee, stout, etc. And it goes, again, towards blending those flavors with a traditional whiskey. And on the flip side, we all know how gigantic the market has become for barrel-aged beers in generally whiskey barrels. Yes, there are some other varieties used. There's some wine varietals. There's some tequila aging. There's a number of different spirits that get used. But the vast, vast majority are whiskey barrels. And that kind of marries the two things that we're looking at behind me today. We're going to take a look at some of the similarities and some of the differences, but there's one thing that I really want to focus on, and that is, right off the bat, the glasses that they're being housed in. And when you look, you get an idea of a Belgian-style glass like this that is specifically for getting the most out of not only the flavor, but the aroma. And you see the general shape of these glasses is definitely by design to contour up to a peak and apex all those aromas coming off the head of this particular Belgian blonde that I have, and put it right there for your nose to take in and to bring into your palate, then adjusting what you're going to taste as well. Likewise, a Glencairn glass does the same thing with any spirit, but specifically with whiskey. Now, there are a lot of other glasses out there. They'll try to sell you things that tilt over on purpose or are double-walled, but at the end of the day, a good Glencairn glass is just about good for any kind of enjoyment, not just with spirits. You can put wine in here and get a different nose than you'll get in a very open and oxygenated wine glass. You can put beer in here and get some different notes as well. So it all comes back to, again, the shape of the glass, contouring from a belly up to a stem that narrows all of the aroma so that you can get all that goodness into the nose, which then affects how you're going to taste that same spirit. Now, looking at these two shapes together gives you the congruity that really makes them work. And I think at the end of the day, it becomes about marrying some of this flavor with some of this flavor and putting them together in varied combinations, not just one with the other. Now, for beer, certainly, you've seen this type of glass. It has come to the point where in craft brew in America, a lot of adaptations are coming off of some of the older European traditions, particularly stemware that looks like this, that has the body, that you can get some of the things like Belgian beers specifically that have those aromas. Now, a lot of American beer has huge aromas too. In fact, the modern IPA is more about fruit flavor and fruit aroma than it is about the base of the beer, the malt of the beer, or even the bitterness, which really should still be in an IPA, by the way. We can have that argument and discussion another day. I'm sure Mike will take a different approach than I will. But the end of the day, it's about all of your senses coming together to enjoy something that a craft brewer has made or a craft distiller has made. I think it comes back to that. The interesting part for me is right now it's really hard to find a standard stout that isn't barrel aged, or a barley wine. Certainly, they've all gone to the barrel aging, and it's difficult to find one that just showcases what the brewer had in mind when they made the wort and see what the yeast did to it. It is kind of an old school thought at this point, because what you have to watch out for in barrel aging is taking too much flavor from the wood, too much flavor from, in beer's case, from the original spirit. When you get Heaven Hill or Knob Creek barrels that are imparting so much flavor into the beer, if the beer's not up to it, you end up with a product that tastes more of the highlights of the barrel than it does of the brew. And that actually becomes a bit of a problem. So I think you have to take that in mind. That said, for the homebrew crowd, being able to add slight flavors with cubes, oak chips, I prefer the spirals myself. They do take that tinge, and you can put them into a direction where you get some of that barrel flavor out of it without having to have an entire barrel. Those things come in very handy. In the opposite, the product of a distillate actually comes down to the flavors that were in it before it was distilled. That comes down to the mashing process and mirrors the brewing process very closely. And I find more and more these lines are becoming blurred. As you see the cost of some whiskeys come down, you're seeing the cost of some barrel-aged beer going up to the point where the same volume of liquid approaches the very same price. It's an interesting market that we have right now, especially with everyone at home during the 2020 catastrophe that has become more intake for the average person, at least in America. I think it brings everything together in that these two things go a long way in not only giving each other ideas in terms of the brewers or the distillers that are making them, but in the drinkers and how they approach what they're about to taste. I think that's really great, and I'm going to continue. We're going to go down this path, and we'll have some whiskey reviews for you as well. I'm sure we'll get into some other things besides that. We'll start with what we know best, and what I know best is Scotch and Irish whiskey, so we'll go from there. But I think that's a really interesting path down once we've gotten to where we are with the brewing. So let me know what you think down below in the comments. Are you more interested in spirits or in the brew or the combination thereof? Now, another aspect of this is the economy of it. With the pullback in the delivery of beer in America because of restrictions and safekeeping, I think it now starts to get to the point where everyone's dialing back. It's leaving more grain to do more experimentation for some of the craft distillers around the country. And you're going to see them taking little bits and pieces from some of the things that we do as brewers to try and tease out different flavors, especially some of those mildly kilned malts that bring out the toffees and the coffee and even just a touch of the chocolate, but the lighter kilned malts, I think, are going to be very popular with craft distillers here very soon. And you see more and more. There's Proximity in Colorado. There's Root Shoot in Colorado. There's a number of craft maltsters, even in California, all over the place. And as they grow and become very more specific about the flavors that they're able to tease out of the malt, you're going to see the same malt be used in distilling and in brewing. It's going to be really intriguing as we move forward beyond 2020. We're going to take a look in depth about pairing some of those things together and where some flavors cross over. It's going to be really interesting, and I'm looking forward to it. We're going to continue with a lot of the beer reviews and our brewing videos with how we go about this game of home brew. Look for more updates on the Pico Brew, on Mike's grain frother system, as well as the Spike Conicals. I've had a little bit of a challenge lately because my fermentation chamber has gone down. It is a refrigeration unit that needs some service, so I've been a little bit out in the cold, haven't been able to do any lagering, and my last cold crash was not terribly successful. So a little bit of a hiccup in the brew schedule here, but we're going to get back to that very soon. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us. We're going to have a lot more topics. If you have something you want to hear about, either in our experience or in our research, drop us a note below in the comments. We're looking to grow this channel and the conversation around it with home brewers, craft brewers, professionals, and the like. So we appreciate you taking the time to check this one out. Cheers, and we'll see you next time.